Hey Mick, so I've known you actually since you were at university, so why did you go to geophysics?
Well, I was, as a young lad, I was interested in outdoor activities and map making. I made some maps around the home area. And I went to Flinders and I had some reasonably good results, and they stuck me in the doctor's medicine aisle or lane. And I got halfway down that and I said, no, I don't like the sight of blood. So I went to the next lane across. It was geophysics. And Francois Chomelon taught me into studying geophysics at Flinders.
So then did the university at Flinders with Francois and all the others, Andy White and Tony White and John, did they set you up for your prepare for your career?
Yes, so I think I had a fairly good education. At high school I had good maths and science teachers, so they provided me with a background to maths and sciences. And then at Flinders, the course was pretty good. It was fairly intense, as you may remember, but it certainly set me up for my career as geophysics later. It was all rounded.
I'm just going to ask a little summary question here, because what I found was it was a quite an intense course, but it was mainly potential fields, very little seismic until we did sort of like fourth year. Did that really affect you, because most of your career has been in the seismic business? Yeah,
I have worked mainly in seismic. I started off in the electrical and potential field side of business, because I couldn't get a job in the oil industry at that time. It was fairly hard. But I think when John Sunderland started at Flinders Uni, he brought along a lot of oil exploration expertise into the department, and it took off from there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Mick, so you did say you started off in potential field stuff, I guess with the geophysical finishing school in Adelaide, and so give us a summary then of how you went after that.
Okay, I got out of uni and tried to find a job in the oil patch, but got Whitlam had sorted out the oil industry by then, and basically it was shut down. They threatened to nationalise the industry, so there was no jobs. So I got a job with GeoX, a small Adelaide-based company, doing IP surveys out of Cobar. And just about everybody was working for them at the time. Nick Lim, Dave Isles, Craig was there. Most people, Andy Mills, just about all of the graduates that from the year before had started in the early 1976 with GeoX and gone out to the bush. So I went out there. Actually, there was some pretty inexperienced lads. One night, I think we went off to Cobar and sat in the RSL club drinking a few beers, and then got home late at night, and we were staying in some shearing quarters, and we had a generator out the back to provide light and stuff. And one of the lads, who was filling it up with petrol, filling up the generator, one of the lads couldn't see, so he lit a match, and of course the whole thing went up in flames. So we learned quickly not to do that sort of stuff. GeoX, then I got offered a course at Durham Uni for doing a master's degree in geophysics, which Peter alluded to that earlier. That was the only way you could get a geophysics degree was as a master's degree. They've shut down now. Actually, they reckon it costs too much to run. So about 4 years ago I was back there and they said they were closing it down. I went to Durham, did my degree, came back and still couldn't get a job in the oil patch, so I got a job in solo geophysics. It's similar to GeoX, just running surveys out in the middle of nowhere. We were in Cooma, Cobar, Limbunya up in the Northern Territory, Woomera, all over the place. And we did that for about 6 months, and then Bernie Milton at the mines department in Adelaide offered me a job as a technical assistant. He couldn't get a geophysics job for me, but his technical assistant got me off the streets, and I did that for a year, and then Delhi offered me a job in 1980. So I worked at Delhi with Craig there and a few other people, and that was pretty good fun. Then after Delhi I went to Melbourne and met Peter. Those were good days actually. The contractors, you're right, they did like to get to Melbourne, and I recall lots of Melbourne Cup days where we would take a boat out to the racetrack and
They were good days.
and taught geophysics all the way there and back. Yeah,
In between champagnes.
yeah, that's right. And then after Melbourne, the company I worked for got bought out by Total, so we went off to Oklahoma. I worked for Hudson in Oklahoma, and they came back to Perth, bought Alan Bond's oil company, and came back to Perth and as Hudson, and then they had eventually merged with Apache. So I worked there till the mid-90s, and then I set up my consultancy business, and I've been a consultant geophysicist pretty much ever since. So what's that, 30 years or so nearly. Yeah, so I worked for mainly Santos, BHP, Petrocorp in New Zealand, Cairn Energy in India, all over the place. It's been a really good job, and I don't have to do too much management bullshit. So that's been pretty good.
We had a great ASEG committee in Melbourne in those days. We had Nick Lynn, you, me,
Tom Eady, I think was there,
Eric Allison, Tom.
Yeah.
There's some famous names.
A couple of others. John Denham used to float in every now and again.
Yes, yeah.
Throw a bomb in.
Yeah. Yeah, we worked for the ASEG in Melbourne quite a lot. I was secretary, I think, and
Yeah,
president.
yeah.
We organised a conference there, which I think I was in Oklahoma during the time the conference was on, but we did the organising for it.
Yeah, the year before that, so that was 1989.
Yep.
1987 one was held. It was an ASEG in Adelaide, and they lost a bunch of money.
Yep.
And then we got all the money back the next year, and having a great
Yep.
time.
Yep.
But unfortunately, Mick didn't stay for it.
No, I missed out on that. But it was good working for the ASEG, and networking with the different companies in Melbourne. There were a bunch of companies. There were a lot more than there are now. There must have been a dozen at least. And you can see very many of them, not much of them, except at ASEG meetings or PISA lunches. It was a hive of activity. And then they eventually all got bought by Santos, or moved up to Sydney and got bought by Santos.
That's right. So that's a lot of stuff. So, but what do you think are the most important milestones in your career? And also, what are the most enjoyable parts of it?
Okay.
Apart from boozing with us.
The milestones, I have a couple. One was, first milestone was getting a job in the oil business at Delhi. That was pretty good. I got to work with some pretty interesting people. It was a lot of fun, and the work wasn't too onerous, but it was certainly very active.
I remember it's a bit of a play hard, work hard company.
It was. We certainly stayed after work for a few beers, quite a few nights, and I met Lady Benifen there one night. We had a lunch with Schlumberger, and that worked into dinner, evening meal, and one of the lads just was looking at his menu and fell asleep at the table, and the lady behind us said, "Oh, your friend looks a bit sick, can I give him a lift home?" And she turned out to be Lady Benifen, whose husband was one of the founders of Santos. And so she took us outside, and the roller was parked right on the front door of the restaurant. We piled in and took John home, and I took the person home.
It wasn't John home.
No, it wasn't John home.
It was, yeah.
And so, getting back to the question, milestones, I think when I was at Delhi, I found Jackson, the biggest onshore field in Australia, apart from Barrow Island, which is arguably not really onshore. And that was good fun. Since then, I found, when I was working at BHP, found the Ravensworth trend oil fields with a bit of putting together some stories from people in the past work, and Woodside drilled some wells around the edge. So putting that story together was really good, and then convincing management to drill it.
So you were the A team?
We were the B team.
Oh, I was the B team. You were the A team.
Well, you were the B team afterwards. But yeah, we put a good story together, and that was a good milestone. And then my most recent milestone was not actually having to go to work ever again.
No, well,
We're on round 2.
we're on round 2.
Head out break.
Yeah. So, okay, Mick. So, also, I mean, we've worked together quite a lot, and we've had quite good times. But what are your most enjoyable jobs? We just wait for this car to go past, I think.
My most enjoyable jobs, they've all been pretty good, except for one.
That's the next
Starting
question.
Starting off in the field crews, that was always good fun. Working with young lads straight out of university, and then I moved on to Delhi. That was a playhouse. We just played all day and drank all night, worked all night. It was most enjoyable, and I'm still friends with most of the people that I worked with in that year. That was early 80s, and they still have a group of people. We played poker back in those days.
Yeah, we did in Melbourne, didn't we?
For $20 a night.
We've got the chips still.
And I have the chips, and we still play $20 poker to this day.
Yeah.
With the ex-Big Delhi and now BHP people as well. Delhi was good fun. Then I moved to Melbourne and I got a job with a company called Texas Gas, and they were bought by CSX. So Texas Gas CSX, and we had 13 permits, non-operating, but I just had permits all around Australia to look at, and it was a great learning experience. I had joint ventures with 20 partners in them, so I got to meet just about everybody in the country at that stage, and that was good fun. And then I went off to Oklahoma. Oklahoma wasn't so flash, so we just let this cargo pass. I think Sharon was the slimmest she'd ever been after 12 months in Oklahoma. It was the food was diabolical, but it was an interesting look into the US oil scene for me, and that's where I picked up a lot of my skills with Landmark. We were down there at the Landmark shop, 3D seismic interpretation courses for every couple of months, so we learned a lot there. And then I came back here, worked for Hadson for a while, and then set up my consulting business, and that was been the most enjoyable of all. Just going to all parts of the world, India, New Zealand, around Australia, and learned a lot and had a lot of fun. And you meet people all over the place, as Peter said. I could be walking down the streets in, I think Florence it was, we ran into Mike Brumby from Petrosys and just bumped into him. And I was in London a couple of years ago and met Mark Sloan. Just at breakfast, he just walked into the same breakfast shop as us, and we had no idea the other person was there. But we meet people all over the place. Well, getting back to it, my most enjoyable job was the last one I had actually, was Mitsui, working for the Japanese, and I was there for 10 years, 11 years, and they were great. They let us do what we wanted. We just provided recommendations to the management, and they would either take it on face value, and they wouldn't question anything, but they would make decisions based on what we told them. And they either decided to go with us or they decided not to, but it was up to them. But we just gave them all the data and information that they needed and to make decisions. They were great to work for, and there was very little management involvement, and we had a great time. Unfortunately, they moved on. They don't really look for oil anymore. They're into the hydrogen and carbon sequestration business now.
So that was the most enjoyable, and I think you hinted at your Oklahoma time as your most stressful job.
No, the most stressful was getting out of uni and not having a job, actually. I went to a lot of interviews, I sent a lot of letters around, and got no response really. That was quite stressful because I was just a young lad.
Yeah.
And
I know the feeling.
Trying to save my money up to go to England to study. And then when I got back, I had to save my money up and get married and stuff. So it was quite stressful not having any cash. but the most recent stressful situation was I was involved in a bullying complaint, and that was probably a waste of time and effort for everyone involved, and it was quite stressful sorting that out. But, yeah.
And, you know, in our business of geology, geophysics, you do end up in a few funny places.
Yes, and speaking of explosives, you mentioned in our first job at GeoX, one of the lads got posted to the Pilbara, and he was doing a refraction survey, and he actually got blown apart. And I had to go and replace him, and I got a stern talking to by the Western Australian Mines Department before I was allowed anywhere near any explosives. But
yeah, we were quite cavalier. I mean, being in the Simpson, and the boys the shooters would just drive around in the back of their bombs in the back of their thing, and we'd just lay out the cord, and you know, it was really. I mean, even I set off things, right? So it was a bit cavalier. Yeah,
safety wasn't quite so noticed. I think we wore thongs out in the field, and floppy hats instead of hard hats on the rig site and things like that.
And Mick, you think you must see pretty much the same things, but is there anything which stands out more than anything else?
Well, it was the most drastic, I suppose, as call it, is we moved from paper section, colour pencils and 2D rolls of paper on the desk to now we have 3D surveys on data.
In the 80s, when we were doing ray path modelling to find out, we had to draw by hand. And then the computers started being able to do it in about 84. You could do ray path modelling on a computer. And now, with so much data, it's easy to do.
Well, it's actually the prevalence of GPUs, which people don't think about. You know, so we've taken the gamers computing system, and we've used that because they can do lots of things together.
Yeah, I think the seismic industry or the exploration industry has some of the biggest uses of the computers in the world, and certainly the technological advances in just compute power has been quite a game changer.
You know, I look back at the seismic interpretation and the grounding we older people have in contouring and making sure your throws on the faults work correctly, and with geological and how that's disappeared a bit now. And I think, you know, it's something that people need to think about. But computers can do virtually anything, but some of the things you still got to have a bit of geology in there. And I used to love contouring. It was therapeutic, and I used to love putting the contours together. But now you don't have to do it.
Friday afternoon
we'd do contouring, and then we'd have to fix it again
Monday morning. Oh, yeah, that's standard, but not anymore.
Not anymore, because my favourite term, Nintendo Geos. The younger people than me just push it. Excuse me, I've got something in my throat. Yeah, the youngsters seem to just push buttons and get lots of pretty coloured maps out, and then believe what they have, and they don't really understand the geology. I don't think, anyway. The geology, they don't put much thought into the geology or what processes are happening to produce whatever they produce. Computers can do anything. I've got seismic interpretation systems on my laptop now at home, and it's running artificial intelligence machine learning software as we speak. It's pulling every fault out in the 3D survey, for instance. So computers can do just about anything you want these days, but whether you believe what they do is up to you, I suppose, and the management.
So on that, and we have I know we've all worked for 40 years plus. So what did you enjoy most about being a geophysicist in particular?
Oh, I think you summed it up the other day, Craig, when we were out at meeting. There's three things that really it's a job where you have a lot of variety, and stimulates your brain. You think a lot. You have to come up with models and ideas and stuff. That's quite important, and it makes for an interesting job, and no boring days really. You come up with something every day that's different, and of course it pays well. that's a bonus, or it used to pay well. And finally, it's just the travel. You get to get around in different parts of the world and see how things function. For instance, the second last job was in India with Ken, and that's a fascinating society. It's totally different. You couldn't say it's the same or as anything that you know. It's just totally different, and it was quite a fascinating place to work. Very frustrating though.
So in India you worked in the south and the north. Did you see that there was big, even internally and inside India, it was big differences?
Yeah, in India's there's 46 or 50 languages, I don't know how many, but English is the only common language across the whole continent. In the south, it seems to me, I'm not a real expert on India, but it seems that part of the continent or subcontinent was developed by trade with the Africans and even the Romans. There's Roman artefacts in there. There's St. Thomas's remains, where St. Thomas used to hang out with Jesus. So they seem to trade and travel and they're quite friendly down there, because obviously if you want to trade with people you've got to be nice to them. But up in the north, they've mainly came about from invaders from further out, and they're not so friendly to foreigners or even people from the south of India. So I found there was a difference in what their history was and how the Indian people related to you. That's my view, and I don't want to upset any Indians, because there's some really nice guys there. In fact, most of them are pretty nice.
Whilst the industry in itself has been up and down all the time, and there's always a threat when the oil price goes down that you'll lose your job, very few people lost their job if they got their interpretation a little bit wrong. And the fact that they trust you with that amount of expenditure is I don't know of any other industry that does it.
No.
Yeah, we all make mistakes.
Well, not necessarily mistakes. You think about
interpretation.
You're doing remote sensing. You're trying to find something 3,000 metres underground. So modern day, say in the Gulf of Mexico, you're drilling down to 3,000 metres in 3,000 metres of water.
With salt.
Yeah, through salt. So you're trying to find. So they can't really say, "Well, you've done a dod job, go," because if anybody who's interpreted in salt knows that all four of us here will have completely different interpretation of the same piece of data.
Yes, having said that, I've been a contractor for a while now. Most contracts have in there a clause that can put the blame on you for drilling dry holes. So there's liability clauses in there, which I usually cross out, and or get a letter from the management absolving me of any wrongdoing if the well comes in dry. But potentially you could end up as a consultant paying for a dry hole for BHP, for instance.
Yeah, it's just so through seismic, through drilling, it's an expensive business.
It is, but the technology is expensive to develop up to that stage. It can be freely available to everyone for a price. Well, I recall the first conference I organised was in Adelaide in 1980-something, 81, and I just took registrations. I was treasurer. Took the registration money and put it in a bag, and then we went off to the pub afterwards with this bag under our arm of thousands of dollars.
Shoebox.
In a shoebox, yeah. We went to the pie cart actually. It was pretty good.
Okay. So it's been 5 years, Mick, since you graduated. Isn't that a horrible thing to say?
Oh, it's nearly 50.
Is it? No, it's 1976, so it's 7 years.
Yeah.
So where are you at, and where do you think you're going to go? Where are you going to go?
Well, I'm semi-retired at the moment. That semi means I can't find any work. Semi-retired, and I really, the longer I stay as semi-retired, the less I'm interested. But I wouldn't mind doing some odd jobs every now and then. I had some grand plans of doing things with various aspects of geophysics and playing the software I have, and and trying to develop some workflows for different things. But maybe I'm not so interested in doing that anymore. But I'm still tinkering a bit in the side. Like I said, I've got some things running at the moment at home while I'm up here enjoying myself.
You'll keep writing your column?
I told the editor that I would give up writing the column 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but I'm still writing them. Yeah, I'm running out of things to say, but
No, it's a constantly evolving industry. You'll never run out of things to
Or
say.
you're running out of bits of data that you've scoffled away from
I've
over
got
the years.
heaps of data at home. You can write to the Queensland government and they send you a disc with all their 3D surveys in Queensland on $100. So there's always that to fall back on. And I can download from Noppins, National Oil Depository, and that's free, but it just takes a long time to get it all down.
Yeah, so that leads into our final sort of question we're going to talk about in a minute, is just thoughts on education in geophysics and just geophysics in general. So you've been sort of covering that in part about your mentoring things, but I know that, for instance, the school that Mick and I went to do geophysics doesn't really exist anymore, is it?
No, it's a part of the geography department or something. They handle environmental geophysics, but that's about it. One of my contracts was to teach at Curtin Uni, and it's really good to see that the students I had 20 years ago now are managing the industry. There's Troy Thompson from Darg, Tristan Allen from Schlumberger, Kate at BHP. There's quite a lot of them now that have come up through the ranks. Martin King is another one from Woodside. Come up through the ranks, and they're now showing the other youngsters there, 2 generations before me now, how to work in the industry. But I think Curtin now doesn't have a geophysics section really, unless you're from Eastern Europe, which is fine for me. But not anyone. No, they don't have any students much in the geophysics industry. And
isn't that interesting? Because at one stage they probably produced educated 50 or 60% of any geophysicists in Australia in each year.
Yeah, now they don't do hardly any, if any at all. And then we had the same problem when you and me were at uni. I think I was the only one in my year.
I definitely was.
Geophysics. And Craig was the only one in his year. In the year between us, I think there was about 4 or 5. But that's closed down now.
I mean, there's a lot of geophysicists coming out in the minerals area, but in petroleum, geophysics and geology, talk to Chris Elders, Simon Lang, the numbers are way, way down.
Yeah.
And even the master's numbers have gone down. So,
it's not surprising when you look at people of our vintage that haven't had work for 4 or 5 years. And the kids enrolling in university nowadays, they see that.
yeah.
And they go, well, I'll do this degree and I'll come out and I won't have a job for 5 years. So I won't do that degree. I'll do something else like accounting or whatever.
But don't just think oil and gas. Think of other things as well that you can do within there. Same skill base.
Yes.
Not as much fun though.
No. Well, but it's...
But drilling wells for carbon dioxide sequestration.
But you've got
Doesn't really ring
the
bell for me.
geophysics in there, you've got to image the plume. So, that's going to be very interesting because the modelling you've got to do and the monitoring, you've got to have to see how this CO2 disperses in the reservoir. So that's going to be a new area of geophysics.
That's
Well, it's not that new. I used to map plumes in my younger days at the mines department. We had a cheese factory that they would chuck the cheese offal waste down a bore, and then I would run a resistivity across to see how far the plume went.
So maybe your career's not finished yet then.
Or maybe I should go back to cheese making.
Geophysics and cheese. I've not heard that before.
Yeah, well, there is certainly a lot of certainly 4D seismic and microseismism all goes into the geosequestration for exactly that reason.
How come modelling waste cheese products did not come as one of your
It wasn't that much
key
of a while.
milestones?
Was the cheese off?
Well, it was the
Well,
way
the
it's
stuff they stuck down the hole. Yeah. I did a cheese factory, I did an abattoir, and I did lots of road bridges over rail.
So, yeah, I'm sure that that's engineering geophysics, and there's still, that is a branch which we don't actually touch on too much in ASEG, I don't think. There is a bit, but not too much, right? No, okay, I think that's it. So thanks very much. It's been quite an interesting discussion. I may have butted in a few times. Helen's been very quiet here next to me. So, but thank you very much, and we'll see what comes. We'll see what comes of this. Maybe one day Helen will be on the other side of the camera.
I'll just introduce our interviewees. Interviewers is Craig Dempsey and Helen Debenham. They're on the other side here. I'll just get their photos. Smile.
And Craig's got a lot of similar experiences to us.
Yeah, as you may have heard through the discussion. So,
was your longest employer BHP?
Yeah, if I look at my employment profile, it sort of went like asymptotically like this through the employers, like 6 months, a couple of months, and then a couple of years, and 11, 12 years at Marathon, and then 23 and a half at BHP.
You were a fair while at Marathon.
11.
I would have been there a long time, but I kept coming second in the job interviews, Pete. I had about 4 job interviews with BHP.
I recused myself in one of your job interviews because I said, I'm next to closer friend, I can't really sit on the job.
You'd have had John Denham interviewing you.
Yeah, John Denham.
I didn't have anybody interviewing me.
And Greg Smith in the next one, and then Craig was supposed to do it. Actually, it was Mark Locke, I think.
Yeah.
Interviewed me in the mid-90s, and then in the 2000s it was Craig, and someone else got the job. So I went and worked somewhere else.
Well, we've always worked hard and played hard. And,
yes.
One thing,
Yeah.
you do go out and have fun with your successes.
Yes.
But when you put together an application for a bid round, you just worked all the hours to make sure you got it in, and it's good fun.
I know. I must say that I found that all the companies I worked for celebrated success.
Yeah.
Quite well.
Yeah.
So, all right.
You worked a lot in the not oil company, but the support companies. Is
Yes.
it any different? Just a view on those, because you've heard about oil companies, and I'm talking about my seismic days, but what are they like these days?
So success is not well celebrated because often we're not even told. So you might process some seismic. Clients being very careful about, can we see the AVO here?
Yeah.
You do all this work, and then they
don't
disappear
tell you.
off.
Yeah.
And presumably they book a rig, they go and drill things, but unless you're actually keeping your ear to the ground to find out what's happening, nobody actually comes back and says, we drilled on that seismic and it was great. Nobody tells you that. I'm still waiting to get one of those little paperweights with a blob of oil in.
They don't do them anymore because that's health and safety.
Don't they?
No,
Oh.
they can't do it. Can't
Well, maybe I'll never get my blob of oil then.
I used to have little bottles.
I've still got
bottles of
I've got a bottle of Jabiru
Yeah,
oil and
stop it.
some Northwest Shelf ones.
I've got
I'm-
chalice, and I've got.
I'm waiting for the little gift that comes that says, we couldn't have done it without the seismic you worked on.
Oh,
I think I'll be waiting my entire career.
I took when GSI completed the 3D seismic. I took their crew, their processing crew out, and I took them out, and we spent a lot of money, and we drank a lot of beer or wine. Can't remember which. Jim McRae, remember Jim McRae?
Yes, Jim. Yeah.
So he was an interesting character.
Yeah. Well, you wonder. Okay, thank you very much, folks, and I
Thank
think
you.
it's time for us to go and have a
What is
libation.
it-